Okay, one of the very first options, it took me a while to get back to this, by the way. This is part 3 of series in explaining and using a USB flash drive to boot Ubuntu and the usefulness of it. So one of the first things you can do with this USB boot stick once you have it in your possession is, while you're booting the boot stick, hold down any key on the keyboard and it'll boot you into a special menu. So that is what I'm going to show you first. So let's do that. Again, I'm booting into this through a VMware, and I'm having to force being able to boot to it through using the tool discussed earlier, and that you see here. And another thing I have to do is make sure that my device is installed, and it is, so we're ready to go with that. Once I click here, I'm going to immediately hold down just any key on the keyboard so I can get to the special menu, because otherwise it's just going to put me straight into an install or try menu. And I kind of want the extra options on this, so let me do this. Okay, here we are, and what this is it is a menu to get into memory, tester, disk tools, and things of that nature with the Ubuntu USB image. I'm going to choose English here so everybody who's in my target audience that can see that the options available. Okay, as you see, we have try Ubuntu without installing, install Ubuntu, check disk for defects, test memory, boot from hard disk, and if I hit F6, I have even more options. These options are basically used to troubleshoot being able to boot into Ubuntu. If you have any problems, you can use these options to make it make Ubuntu boot in no API-C is basically used when you want to try and boot into a non-supported mode for 12, well, not non-supported mode, I should say, when you want to force loading of a newer version of Ubuntu, or I'm sorry, a newer version of Ubuntu on older systems. A lot of these you can just Google and find out what each option is and go from there. Okay, I'm not going to cover any more about that because I don't want to make this video so long that it's impossible to upload to YouTube, and many of the people that we probably provide these sticks to are probably not going to be, probably already know how to use this stuff, so I'm going to exit out of that. Okay, so what we're going to do is, first and foremost, we're going to try Ubuntu without installing, and you're going to see it come up on the screen, and then we'll go into installing. Now, with trying Ubuntu without installing, once it's booted, you also have the option to install, or you can go straight into the install Ubuntu. Now, if you booted this without holding any other keys down, you'll be put into a menu that I will cover shortly that puts you straight into try or install. Okay, here we are booting into Ubuntu. Okay, we are booted into the Ubuntu desktop here. I'm not going to be able to bring this up to full screen view because it is just running from the USB stick, and I could install the VMware tools, but I'm not going to. As you can see, as I said, it's a fully operational desktop, just as if you were using it on from a regular install, and you have the option of installing directly from here. We're not going to do that. I'm going to shut this down and I'm going to reboot into a different mode. I'm going to reboot into the main mode that automatically boots rather than holding a key down and forcing the other mode that I just showed you. So here we go, powering off. And when it comes back up, I will be right back. Okay, here we are, booted up again as the default that you would be presented with. Oops, I held down the key again. Let me reboot it into the main, into the main window that you would normally see. Give me a second. Okay, here we are at the normal boot screen that the USB stick will open up if you don't hold down any keys when booting to it. And the other option we just showed you, it can be any key on the keyboard that you hold down while it's booting. If you want to try Ubuntu, you click there. If you want to install Ubuntu, you click here. And we're going to click Install Ubuntu. Okay, you see here that it says that you must ensure this computer has at least 4.9 gigabytes of available hard drive space, that it's connected to the internet. I'm not going to download updates while installing, and I'm not going to install third-party software because it takes much longer time to do that. I'm just going to run through this basically as quickly as possible. I'm going to choose to erase disk and install Ubuntu because, again, it's not going to erase the ISO that I pointed it to. It's actually referring to the hard disk space that I made available for it previously in that 10 gigabit area range. This is Ubuntu 12.10, and there is a new option here where it allows you to encrypt the installation completely. And it also has local volume management, which helps with backups and things of that nature, making sure that it is available to other systems and at all times. And the something else is repartitioning for like expert users that know what they're doing, or if you have a machine that you're installing this on and you want to do this manually, you don't need this option if you use Wooby on the flash disk to install, because Wooby can be launched from inside Windows, and it'll actually install Ubuntu from inside Windows, and can actually be removed from the control panel in Windows as well. But when you boot your computer, what you'll see are two options to boot into Windows or Ubuntu, and if you want to remove that, you can open up your Windows operating system, go into the control panel, into the program manager, and just remove it from there. So again, this is the option we're going to choose, which is to erase the disk and install Ubuntu. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue here. And while we're waiting for that to go ahead and install, I'm going to pause this video again to keep the file size minimal. Okay, you will see that it has prompted me for my time zone, much like Windows operating systems do when you install them. I'm going to click continue here. Okay, you're going to be prompted for the keyboard layout, and when you are prompted for the keyboard layout, obviously choose your language and continue. Sometimes the mouse acts a little sticky inside VMware with this boot device, so you may have to click it a couple times. I'm just going to call this test user and set up a password general to usable that I'll remember. Require my password. Now, this is another thing I like within Ubuntu. Remember, we had the option before to encrypt the whole installation, which would make it inaccessible to anybody who tried to access it, even if the drive was stolen from your machine or the installation was stolen. That would encrypt everything so that it wouldn't even be accessible at all. Even if somebody put that device into another enclosure, say for instance, somebody in Windows, if somebody steals your hard drive, even with current operating systems, unless you've installed separate encryption software, somebody's able to take your hard drive, put it into an enclosure, and change the permissions and retrieve all your files. In this case scenario, remember the option before, encrypt the entire hard drive, they couldn't do that. And even if you don't want to encrypt the entire hard drive, you have the option to just encrypt your home folder, which will prevent not only any other users that you set up on this device from accessing it, but it will also prevent other people from stealing your hard drive and accessing the documents that are within your home folder. And if you know anything about Ubuntu, it's that all your documents are that home folder is the place where your personal documents and downloads and everything of that nature are going to be stored. That's like the main path for your documents. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to encrypt my home folder just because I don't need it on this test box, and I'm going to click continue. And you'll notice that it continues to install its system, and as it goes along, I do recommend that you watch the install for somebody who hasn't been through it before, because it does, as it's installing, it gives you like little tips and tricks for the current operating system, and says that, oh, Ubuntu One, it exists, and that you can sign up for free for 5 gigs of space and all these other neat little options that are included. And if you wanted to, you could even click these windows to keep going, and it would give you even more tips while it's installing. And you might find this useful going into it as a first-time user. Very helpful, very user-friendly. Once again, so I'm going to let this continue, and I'm going to pause this video while it continues. Oh, and here's a very interesting item which we'll go through later. One of the applications that comes included with Ubuntu is the LibreOffice, and it has the Writer, the Calc, and the Impress. The Writer is similar to Word and functions much like Word. LibreOffice Calc is not really a calculator, it's more like an Excel spreadsheet, like Excel. And LibreOffice Impress would be what would be considered like a PowerPoint equivalent. Okay, I'm going to allow this to continue on. Another thing I should point out here directly is that if you have any questions with using the operating system itself, you can go to askubuntu.com, and it's an open forum where people, where you can search for answers to all your questions. And if you have any questions to ask, you can also go to ubuntu.com.support. There's also a lot of forums available for Ubuntu, and if you have an issue or what have you, you can search those forums, and usually it's already been gone through. And if not, you can post your own issue, and the developers of Ubuntu and the open source community actually get to it rather quickly, unlike Microsoft, where you're relying upon a limited number of programmers that only roll out updates, on a schedule. So usually by the time there's a problem realized in the operating system itself for Ubuntu, somebody has already encountered it, and it automatically reports itself to Ubuntu, and the next day or what have you, it's already being addressed. And we are back. The installation is complete. You need to restart the computer in order to use the new installation. I'm just going to power this down rather than run it from there, because I already have another Ubuntu desktop that I'm going to reference, because it has all the applications. It has a lot of applications in it that I've already installed that I'd like to show you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and power this off. And once I boot up the other machine, I will restart the video once again. Okay, here I am at the boot screen. As you can tell, even this version of Ubuntu has the option for memory test and recovery mode. Recovery mode will automatically, each recovery will automatically be created anytime it updates the Linux kernel. And if you go into previous Linux versions, you'll see a couple different Linux kernels that were here before, and you can boot into any of these if you would like. I'm going to go straight into the current one, which was working here for myself, by just arrowing up, arrowing down, and hitting enter. Oh, and the grub menu is not always available. It is available for me, however, because there was an option that I turned it on, because I was trying to do something, I was doing something the other day, and I wanted that option available, so I did turn the grub menu on. But for you, if you have installed this on just a plain box with no other operating system or any other options, you probably won't see that grub menu, but do know that it is an option if you need it to get back to a previous version of Ubuntu. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and log in here. I hope I remember my password for this machine. Voila. And one of the reasons I wanted to use this box is because it has full screen capability, as you can see, so you don't have to look at that little screen in the center anymore. This is the dash, and from the dash you can access recent apps, recent files, downloads, anything, as well as all these other options where you can search for applications. Unlike Windows, there is a whole bunch of free applications, and you don't even have to open up your internet browser in order to get to them. If you wanted to see if, say for instance, I don't know, PDF, all the free PDF viewers, even though Ubuntu does come with a free PDF creator in it, and you wanted to look for another PDF editor, because that one, you know, the plain PDF viewer inside Ubuntu didn't suit your needs. You could just type in PDF after clicking on this option, and it will come up with the ones that are included in the packages from Ubuntu. And if you don't see what you're looking for here, just make sure your packages are updated. However, the operating system, Ubuntu is pretty good at making sure it's updated. As you see here, this is the update manager that automatically makes sure that you have updates. You can change the settings of the updates to install just Ubuntu, other updates, you know, all this. These are just these are all kinds of options that can be configured by you. And if something does get applied that you find to be problematic, you can simply, which I'll show you in a little bit, you can go back into into the Software Manager, Software Center, which I just clicked on right here from the launcher. And once it opens, you can look at your history and see what was installed, and just simply remove it from the history. So it's kind of like the restore feature, except Windows Restore Point is a little bit more limited. It doesn't let you take off individual packages unless you specifically created restore points. You notice that this one goes all the way back to February 2013. So I have the ability just to remove any of these and roll back to any option that I want. If I wanted to see what was installed here, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but it's kind of tying in, so I want to show this feature, obviously. The accessories, notice they're grouped by group. You have a whole bunch of options here that just automatically come included. You have the developer tools, like even Python, if you're learning to program. Python can be included from the dash. If you wanted to install it, you click on that option right there and just type in Python, hit enter. Python would come up, you'd click on it, and it would install it. If I wanted to and another good thing about this is, if I wanted to install Pigeon Internet Messenger, I click on it, right? And it comes up. Oh, sorry, I already have it installed. If I wanted to install a program, say for instance this, let me find something to install, and then I can actually have that one installed too. If I wanted to install an application and I find it in here, I click on it and it opens up the Software Manager, and then it literally prompts you to install it. Okay, so rather than go through each of these, I'm just going to close out of it. Again, there's some themes and tweaks and sound and video. You have a large selection of items already included. The VLC media player, that is a free open source media player, and it works great across all platforms that I've found thus far. It has all kinds of codecs in it for free. There are graphics applications such as GIMP. GIMP is comparable to Photoshop. Shotwell Photo Manager allows you to just plug in any media device and pull up your photos and things of that nature. I'm going to stop this video and I'm going to come back with the rest of the review, just because this file's getting a little large, and I want to make sure that as I go through this, I'm not going to have any problems going forward and have to recreate this whole thing. So I'm going to stop this video and start it again as the part 4 of the series.